Good morning, Columbia United Church of Christ. We're here for another day of Chancel Chat. And before we start on the psalm that I'm sharing with you today, I want to share with you a few resources. So these are some books that you might want to order to help see you through this time of social distancing and so on, to help build your faith. One of the things that I'm going to talk about in the Friday email, there's a little section that talks about how are you using your time to build your faith. And there's a few books that I'll suggest. This first one is called Convictions by Marcus Borg. Marcus Borg was a great theologian, passed away a few years ago, but he deals in this book with a lot of basic issues of Christian faith and ways that you can, he kind of puts it in terms that really help in great ways. So that's one I would suggest. There's another book that we've been doing in our book study here featuring Austin Harkey, written by Austin Harkey, a book about the Bible and the lives of transgender Christians. It's called Transfarming. There's Austin. He's a transgender theologian, transgender male theologian who wrote about transgender issues and so on. Another book is a book written by Emily Heath called Glorify. This really talks about living your life to glorify God. And that's the book that I've been talking about in my sermons the past couple of Sundays, if you've been paying attention to that and noticing that. And the last book that I'll suggest is called Beyond Resistance. This is written by our own General Minister and President, John Dorhauer. John Dorhauer wrote this book before he was General Minister and President, and he talks about ways the church is evolving in the 21st century into something new and even more relevant for our day and times right now. Also on our CUCC website, there is a downloadable link with coloring pages in it. These are coloring pages for a time such as this. It's kind of adult coloring pages, but it doesn't have to be for adults, I guess. But are things that you can use to help focus and meditate a bit coloring. So just a few resources that I would suggest to you. So today I thought we would take a look at Psalm 22. And Psalm 22 is one that might be familiar to some. And it reads, my God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from helping me, from the words of my groaning? Oh, my God, I cry by day, but you do not answer, and by night, but find no rest. Yet you are holy, enthroned on the praises of Israel. In you our ancestors trusted, and you delivered them. To you they cried and were saved. In you they trusted and were not put to shame. I am a worm and not human, scorned by others and despised by the people. All who see me mock at me. They make mouths at me. They shake their heads. Commit your cause to the Lord. Let God deliver. Let God rescue the one in whom God delights. Yet it was you who took me from the womb. You kept me safe on my mother's breast. On you I was cast from my birth, and since my mother bore me, you have been my God. Do not be far from me, for trouble is near, and there is no one to help. Many bulls encircle me. Strong bulls of Bashan surround me. They open their mouths at me like a ravening and roaring lion. But you, O Lord, do not be far away. O my help, come quickly to my aid. Deliver my soul from the sword, my life from the power of the dog. Save me from the mouth of the lion. From horns of wild oxen you have rescued me. I will tell of your name to my brothers and sisters. In the midst of the mighty congregation I will praise you. And then the rest of the 8 verses are the song of praise that the psalmist sings. So Psalm 22 is one of the Old Testament texts that appear in the Passion narratives on the day Jesus was crucified. This psalm is quoted by Jesus when he cries out one of the 7 last words from the cross, my God, why have you forsaken me? As people read these Passion narratives and hear Jesus say those words, often on Good Friday in church, some have mistakenly assumed that in the time of his death, Jesus' faith faltered and believed that God had forsaken him. But that is not so. In the culture of Jesus' day, citing the first words of a text was a way of identifying an entire passage, much the same way a modern person might say it was the best of times, it was the worst of times, to bring to mind the wisdom of the Dickens novel, A Tale of Two Cities. Jesus was not saying that God had forsaken him. He was inviting his listeners, those who were observing his crucifixion, to recall Psalm 22 and the dynamic that is inherent in that psalm. By doing so, he was comparing that dynamic to his current situation and applying the wisdom of that psalm to his context. Now, this was typical of scholarly Judaism at that time, and even so today. James L. Mays, a Psalms scholar, writes that in the intellectual world of Judaism, one of the most important ways of understanding the present experience was to make sense of the contemporary by perceiving it in terms of an established tradition. I think that's especially important today, in light of the circumstances in which we find ourselves. And that's one of the reasons I'm committing myself to doing these Chancel Chats every day. The best way to understand the meaning of our current experience is to make sense of it by describing it in terms of established tradition. What that means is an understanding of the plight of the Israelites and what they went through will help us get through these trying times today. Though Jesus quotes this psalm, we don't want to look at it simply through Christological lenses. This is not a Christian psalm. This is simply one of the wisdom elements that Jesus, as a Jewish rabbi, studied in order to strengthen his relationship with God. This psalm has had many more applications than just as Jesus' last words on the cross. This psalm is a prayer for help. The psalmist who wrote it is describing three relationships that are troubled: the psalmist's relationship with God, the psalmist's relationship with others, and the psalmist's relationship with self. God's care is seemingly missing from his life. Others are attacking and rejecting him, and the psalmist has lost all confidence in himself as a person. He is destitute. This psalm, though, like many others, illustrates the dynamic between being destitute and being fulfilled, between isolation and hope, between faith questioning and faith assurance. The psalmist has lost their understanding of who God is and where God is, but regains it by the end of the psalm and spends the last 8 verses testifying to others of the power and glory of God. So let's look at that combination of hopelessness and hope, all seen in this psalm. The psalmist combines petitioning and testifying. The psalmist combines language of suffering and language of celebration, all in one arc of unity. As we read this, we come to understand that suffering and celebration are not to be seen apart from one another. There can be no true joy unless one also experiences pain and loss. Now think about that for a moment. Without suffering, salvation has no context. Our global community is suffering right now. The effects of this pandemic will be long-reaching economically, socially, and in the very ways our society is constructed. Like the nation of Israel many times, we are going through a time of social upheaval. But the story arc of grace and God's constant provision that we see illustrated in Psalm 22 exemplifies the promise and provision that will strengthen us through this time. Just as the story arc of Psalm 22 gave Jesus strength and clarity on the cross, the story arc of Psalm 22 will give us strength and clarity in this time, in this place. The rest of that psalm, the last 8 verses, are the psalmist's testimony of faith, praising God to all who would hear him. Let us join together in prayer at this time. My God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from helping this hurting world, this global community? God, we cry out, but you do not answer. Why are you so far from helping us? But we know, O God, that it was you who knit us together in our mother's womb. You took us from the womb and kept us safe all our days. We know you are with us, giving us strength. We know you are with us, giving us courage. We know you are with us, giving our souls peace. Help us in our days of doubt, O God. Help us to be faithful and continue to reflect your goodness. Help us to remember that we are yours and act in ways that reflect that understanding. Help us to maintain our integrity and not sink down into sinful ways during these desperate days. We praise you, O God, remembering that you are ever present. Help us to trust in you, O God. Amen. And let me just remind all of you that we do have resources on our CUCC website. And if you look at my laptop there, you can see our website, ColumbiaUnitedChurchOfChrist.com, and there's a little button that says CUCC and COVID-19 resources. If you click on that button, you'll come to a page that is full of resources that you can utilize in this time. Eventually we will have, there we go. If you click on the one that says Alternative Worship Plan, that lists our worship plan here at the church. We have resources from the National UCC. We have coloring prayers like the ones I showed to you. We have Chancel Chats, the transcript from these chats. We have Dealing with Stress. There are some helpful hints for dealing with stress. And Peace in the Panic poem, written by my friend Sarah Stoll. So I invite you to check out our CUCC webpage and see all of these resources we have, and we will be updating it constantly. We'll also be sending out emails this afternoon and tomorrow about worship on Sunday. We will join together in worship, but it will be on Facebook, YouTube, and possibly accessible through our website as well. It will be a great worship. We invite you to stick around or join us on Sunday morning virtually. Until then, be blessed. Remember that you are blessings in God's world, and look for ways that you can bless the world with your presence, whether it's online or however. Blessings to you all. Amen.